Have you ever wondered what would happen if Russia's economy were to collapse? Well, it seems like that scenario may be closer than we think. With the recent invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent economic sanctions imposed on Russia, the country's financial stability is on shaky ground. Despite Russia's efforts to safeguard the value of its currency, the global exodus of Western corporations and the loss of access to key trade routes suggest that the end of Putin's reign may be inevitable. In this video, we'll explore the factors contributing to Russia's catastrophic economic crisis and discuss the potential outcomes for the country's future. Stay tuned until the end to find out whether Putin's regime will survive this crisis or if this is the end of Putin. On February 24, 2022, Ukraine was invaded by over 180,000 Russian forces, after years of preparation by the Kremlin dating back to 2006. Considerable resources, including hundreds of billions of dollars, were invested in upgrading the Russian military, enhancing economic stability, and expanding global influence. The final step was for Putin to issue the command to attack and await the outcome. On the following day, Putin arrived in Kyiv and delivered a triumphant speech, marking Russia's successful checkmate on the West, catching them off guard. However, unforeseen complications arose. Numerous issues occurred. In fact, Ukraine strived to win the battle of narratives by managing the storyline, employed US intelligence to obstruct Russia's capture of Kyiv, and urged the world to sever ties with Russia, and these efforts proved effective. Numerous businesses made the decision to depart from Russia. BMW ceased production of cars within the country, while IKEA sold off their factories and departed as well. Major players such as Google, IBM, Airbnb, Netflix, PayPal, Samsung, Starbucks, Visa, MasterCard, and Coca-Cola also withdrew from the Russian market abruptly. Moreover, Russian banks were avoided from the worldwide monetary framework, denying the exchange of assets to and from the country. Monetary experts have predicted an expected breakdown of Russia's economy, which would be undeniably more extreme than a downturn and, surprisingly, more regrettable than a downturn. The US initiated a sequence of monetary maneuvers aimed at undermining the ruble, resulting in the currency's value plummeting by 50%. The exchange rate also surged from 70 rubles per dollar to 140 rubles per dollar in a short period. The sudden shift was akin to a global assault on Russia, leading many to predict the country's impending collapse within a few months. The initial goal of the United States was to undermine the value of the Russian currency, recognizing that its collapse would trigger widespread economic turmoil akin to a domino effect. To this end, the US imposed restrictions on the Russian government's ability to obtain foreign currency, encouraged American businesses to depart the country, and instigated a global exodus of individuals looking to liquidate their holdings in rubles and acquire dollars instead. Such actions were aimed at protecting the stability of the US dollar while compromising the value of the Russian currency. The initial valuation of the Russian ruble was cut in half, which is an unusual occurrence in the currency market. Typically, prices are influenced by the interplay of supply and demand. If people begin to offload their rubles en masse, the value will decrease, and it could eventually result in a loss of confidence in the currency, leading to hyperinflation, as was the case with Germany after World War I or Zimbabwe in 2006. However, Russia was able to avert this outcome by learning from the past. In 2014, when Russia added Crimea, the US forced sanctions that made the worth of the ruble plummeted. This time around, Russia was better prepared. Russia has accumulated a foreign reserve of over $630 billion, which can be utilized by the central bank to prevent the collapse of the ruble in case of mass sell-offs. Moreover, due to the exodus of Western corporations from the country and the sanctions imposed on Russia, it has taken proactive measures to limit foreign speculators from engaging in short selling or trading off the ruble. As part of these measures, foreign currency circulation within the country has also been restricted. Initially, the option to obtain US dollars or euros from automated teller machines (ATMs) was no longer feasible. In addition, transferring these currencies outside of Russia was no longer viable as the country had been excluded from SWIFT. Moreover, retaining these currencies in bank accounts incurred a hefty 12% fee, prompting many individuals to sell them to safeguard their funds. As a result, there was a significant surge in demand for the ruble. Businesses operating within the borders of Russia were compelled to convert their foreign currency earnings to rubles, with a minimum of 80% conversion rate. This brought about a flood popular for Russian rubles, eventually making it the best cash on the planet. In this manner, Russia managed to safeguard the value of its currency. Apparently, Russia is nearly turning into a landlocked country because of its new activities. The invasion of Ukraine is likely to worsen the situation. This may seem surprising given that Russia is commonly known as the largest country in the world with significant access to oceans. Regardless, it has all the earmarks of being that the truth is fairly more muddled than a clear yes or no. The geographical positioning of Russia is a double-edged sword, providing both advantages and disadvantages. Most of the country's populace dwells in the western locale, delivering the eastern ports like Vladivostok futile, as transportation from this area towards the western side of Russia would be an unmitigated mess, requiring as long as 9 hours to fly from Moscow. The underdeveloped infrastructure in the region exacerbates the situation, making it more challenging to transport goods efficiently. Moving to the north, the climate conditions are equally unfavorable. The frigid weather for the most of the year and the lack of significant cities make it difficult to reside in this area. Consequently, Peter the Great fought against the Swedish Empire to acquire St. Petersburg, establishing it as the new capital of Russia. This new city provided access to the Baltic Sea, enabling trade with Europe. However, Russia still relied on Sweden to pass through the Danish route, which made it vulnerable to blockage by the Swedish Empire. The reason behind Russia's strong relationship with Sweden is well known. Notwithstanding, as the expression goes, depending exclusively on one option is incautious. Hence, Russia sought out alternative ways to engage in global trade. Sadly, the Bosphorus waterway prompting the Mediterranean Ocean was constrained by the Ottoman domain, causing an unending conflict between the Russian and Ottoman realms. At present times, the Bosphorus Strait is controlled by Turkey, a member of NATO. With Sweden's potential entry into NATO, Russia's access to the oceans would be solely reliant on NATO, leaving them vulnerable to restrictions on their trade routes. The outcome would be detrimental to the Russian economy, as NATO could impede Russian ships, severely limiting trade. Furthermore, the potential loss of Crimea to Ukraine in the ongoing war would lead to Russia losing its power in the Black Sea, leaving the largest country in the world landlocked. Europe's reliance on Russia for natural substances, including oil, gas, and wood, has been a long-standing concern. The supply of affordable gas, for instance, is critical to the survival of German factories. And prior to February 2022, almost half of Europe's gas supply came from Russia. However, Russia's recent decision to halt gas supply to Europe as a means of pressuring it to turn against Ukraine has been unsuccessful. As a reaction, Europe has designated vast sums of money to vary its energy origins and guarantee lucrative contracts with other gas-producing nations like Qatar. This maneuver guarantees that Russia will no more be able to peddle its fossil fuels to Europe as it previously did, which will have a significant impact on its finances, regardless of the ongoing conflict's outcome. Although Russia may endeavor to market its oil and gas to China and India, there are two significant reasons why these countries are unlikely to supplant Europe. Regardless, it ought to be noticed that China and India are not paying similar premiums for Russian gas as Europe does. Additionally, Russia is facing a challenge in terms of resources, as it would require significant investments to build new pipelines to China, similar to the ones that it constructed for Europe over several decades. This implies that the outcome of the war in Ukraine will not significantly change this situation. In light of these circumstances, the Russian economy is poised for a bleak future. Even if Russia manages to annex the entire Ukraine, the country will be in a state of ruin and will require extensive reconstruction efforts. Besides, the conflict in Ukraine has overwhelmed Russia's assets, and that implies that no matter what the compromise is, Russia will probably confront a time of political and monetary precariousness. The economy of Russia is heavily reliant on imported high-tech equipment for manufacturing cars, producing smartphones and computer chips, and even constructing civilian planes. Without Western equipment, Russia is unable to carry out these tasks. Besides, Russia has lost its standing as the world's second generally strong military, regardless of extending itself as equipped for rivaling the US. Despite the fact that Russia may never have been the second most powerful military, the country was successful in projecting such an image. Nevertheless, many countries have opted to purchase US-made weapons due to the United States' superior weapons, resulting in a decline in the demand for Russian weapons.